anterior part of the paracentral, kaya ang tawag mo sa kanya paracentral because it hugs your central sulcus of Rolando. The anterior part of the paracentral is a part of what gyrus? Precentral. And therefore, its function is? It's motor. For what region of the body? Legs, buttocks, and genitals. While this one is the posterior part of the paracentral lobule and is actually a part of the postcentral gyrus, and therefore it is sensory in function to the lower extremities, buttocks, and genitals. So therefore, the paracentral lobule is a lobule made up of an anterior part which has a motor function, subserving the genitals, the buttocks, and the lower extremities. It's a part of the precentral gyrus. And the other part of the paracentral lobule is the posterior lobe, which is part of your postcentral gyrus. It has a sensory function subserving the regions of the buttocks, the legs, and the genitals. Okay? That's the paracentral lobule. And you can identify this on a mid-sagittal surface. Okay? So I'm just correlating it now with the part of your postcentral gyrus. Now, we have now identified, so this is your postcentral gyrus. Behind the postcentral gyrus is the postcentral sulcus. And then you just have an intraparietal sulcus, which divides the remaining part of the parietal lobe into the superior parietal lobule and the inferior parietal lobule. If your postcentral gyrus is the primary motor area, your superior parietal lobule is the secondary sensory area or sensory association area. What is the meaning of that? It means that you can feel the sensation in your postcentral gyrus, but the superior parietal lobule will make you identify specifically that sensibility. So for example, if somebody places a coin in your hand, even without looking, you can identify the shape, the texture, the size, and you can say it's a 5 peso coin. Or if you're very good, you can even say 10 piso to. Or kung yung may butas, gis ba yun? 5 centavos. So just by the texture, even without looking, so just by tactile sense, just by touching, you will be able to identify whether it's a ball pen, whether it's a pointer, or any object placed in your hand. And you are able to do that because of the superior parietal lobule. Now, on the right, the superior parietal lobule is important because it gives you perception of space. The right brain, if the left brain is primarily for analysis, for computation, and for language, the right brain is for music, for magaling ang kumanta. What else? Art, drawing, and perception of space. So yung mga architects, mga painters, they are more of the right brain. So as I was telling you, the superior parietal lobule on the right is very important because it gives you a perception of space. So that if you have a lesion of the superior parietal lobule on the right, you will neglect the contralateral part of your body. So you call that contralateral neglect. So if you have a lesion of the right superior parietal lobule, when you prepare yourself for work or for school, you don't fix the left side of your body. And you call that contralateral neglect. Okay? So that is the function. So the superior parietal lobule is the sensory association area which enables you to identify object even by touch. You call that stereognosis. And on the right, it is important for perception of space. Now, what about the inferior parietal lobule? The inferior parietal lobule is made up of two smaller gyri. The continuation of the sylvian fissure is the so-called angular gyrus. Angular gyrus, while the continuation of the superior temporal is your supramarginal. Okay, so there are two smaller parts of your inferior parietal lobule. The continuation, if you follow your sylvian fissure and you continue there, that gyrus hugging its tip is the angular. And if you continue your superior temporal sulcus, that portion is your supramarginal. Okay? Now, what is the function of the angular gyrus? The function of the angular gyrus is, it is the Wernicke's area for written word. Angular. For written word, what do you mean by the Wernicke's area? Is the part of the brain which enables you to understand either spoken or written word, because we communicate primarily by two ways. Communication actually is two parts, no? The sensory part, or the receptive, by which you can understand auditory, spoken word, or when you read your notes, written word. Okay? Now, what enables you to, when you read your notes, what enables you to understand what you read? Your angular gyrus. Okay? Now, what about now, when I am talking? What enables you to understand what I am talking about? Your superior temporal gyrus. Okay, so this is the sylvian fissure. So below that is your temporal lobe. And the temporal lobe is further divided into three gyri by the superior and the middle temporal sulci. Okay? So the temporal lobe is that part below the sylvian fissure. It is divided into three smaller gyri by the superior temporal and the middle temporal sulci. Therefore, divides it into superior temporal gyrus, middle temporal gyrus, and inferior temporal gyrus. The superior temporal gyrus, if you open it a little, you can see this transverse gyrus of Heschel, which is your primary auditory area. Brodmann's area 41 and 42. Okay, so if you open a little your superior temporal gyrus, you will see there your transverse gyrus of Heschel, or your primary auditory area, Brodmann's area 41 and 42. Now, if you continue along the posterior portion of the superior temporal gyrus, this is the Wernicke's area for spoken word, corresponding to Brodmann's area 21-22. Brodmann's area 22. 22. Sundan mo ang superior temporal gyrus along its posterior portion. So, kung itong superior temporal gyrus, andito yung transverse gyrus of Heschel, ito ang Wernicke's area for spoken word. Brodmann's area 22. And it's logical because you hear it here and you understand it here. Remember, the Wernicke's and the Broca's area are identified as such only on the left brain. On the right brain, you call them superior temporal gyrus lang. Okay?